Back. So we do have on the phone Professor Rosalea Hamilton from Jamaica, and we are going to get an update as to the recovery process that Jamaica is undergoing now. Good morning and welcome, Ms. Professor Rosalea Hamilton.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Very good. All right. So the major areas of devastation would be where? Because we understand there are parts of Jamaica that was not as badly affected. Just sort of give us an overview as to the areas that were totally devastated as opposed to those that were not, did not suffer such great damage.
Well, the west of the island is completely devastated. We're talking about the parishes in St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, St. Anne, and some of Manchester. The middle of the country was badly damaged, but not so bad. So that would the rest of the country, and going to the west. So I think it was just yesterday. Actually, I saw a map at that the west of the island was really badly damaged. The middle was kind of medium, and then the extreme east of the island wasn't badly damaged. However, along the middle of the island and the east, along the coastal towns, many of those towns have been destroyed. The fisher community is in devastation today, all of them. And so although you would have been in the east, Portland, St. Thomas, even Kingston and St. Andrew, those coastal areas were very badly damaged.
Excellent. All right, so let's speak now about, the toll, we still continue to rise based on every day you hear the numbers going up. What is the latest numbers, or what are the latest numbers relating to deaths of people or casualties of the hurricane?
So the latest I heard day before yesterday was 32, and there were about 8 being investigated. They couldn't confirm. I didn't hear yesterday. I actually have been in the throes of the relief effort, actually since during the hurricane, because where I was affected, where I live, was not affected literally at all. I'm in St. Andrew up in the hills, and very few homes were affected in any significant way. So during the hurricane, when I understood the magnitude of this problem we have, I started planning and preparing relief efforts and so on. So I've been exhausted. And so yesterday I, was in the throes of it and so on. So it's physically taxing because we're talking about early mornings, late night days before the hurricane in my case. So I didn't get the update yesterday, but everyone expects that when the number settles, it may well be over 20 people. Sorry, what did I say there? 30 or therearound.
All right, so let's go to the relief efforts that are pouring in from all over the world. What would be let's say in your area, what are the greatest needs? Obviously, houses in some cases would have lost their roofs. The release efforts mainly are foodstuff and cots and that sort of thing. But people need to rebuild. Let's speak to what are the needs in your particular area right now by the citizens to more or less rebuild. I saw soldiers assisting putting galvanized back on roofs and so on. Let's speak to what are the basic or what are the desperate needs in your community particularly.
All right, so when you listen to the victims, they'll tell you they want a roof over their head, because I think Jamaicans, like many of us in the Caribbean, are very self-reliant, and therefore, as long as I have a roof over my head, I'll make do, I'll find my way, type of thing. The other, of course, and very much related to the shelter way up there, is food. Because again, people are just completely devastated. However, food has been flowing in not as fast as people want, as you can imagine, but there's at least a response there. I think there is very little response on the housing side. Obviously, we can't rebuild homes as quickly. However, there's a kind of disappointment that we should have some temporary shelters up by now. That because even the shelters during the hurricane was compromised. That's important to note. Some of the schools were shelters, and the schools did not hold up. And other places that were shelters did not hold up. So, though there may be a few that's functional, but in terms of the need, what has to happen is temporary housing has to go up very quickly.
And has that been...
So what a lot of...
Yeah. Sorry, finish what you're saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, for those homes that have structures and that just the roof went, many of them are making do with tarpaulin and whatever else they can put, zinc and, ply or whatever they can put temporarily. So all of those become kind of urgent need because some people can make do with tarpaulins or whatever. But I would say those, of course, water is also premium right now. I can tell you quickly that a relief worker that I spoke to said that when he got to a point and he saw this family, desperate, devastated, and the child, a baby with them, and the child was moving, and they expected the child would die, and all he did, the first thing he did was give that child water, and the child came to life.
Excellent.
So it really, the need for water is really urgent.
Very good. Accessibility to some areas, or some areas were cut off by landslides. There was, we heard about backhoes and trucks needs to be in those areas. However, they are waiting. And so in some areas, they are completely cut off from the rest of Jamaica. In terms of having access to those areas, helicopter had to be flown in. Just speak to those areas that may be not accessible by road or by ground. And so the helicopters and so on have to drop off things in those communities. Where are those communities, and are they getting their stuff delivered?
Okay, so again, it would be in the communities in those parishes in Hanover, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, and so on. Now, what they've done, they've cleared a lot of the key access roads to those areas. So, in fact, I have a list of that: Sandy Bay, Middlesex, Green Island, Negril, and so they're open up spaces to communities, like in the case of Westmoreland, Negril to New Hope and Little London, Savannah Mar Center to Grange Hill. So I'm just giving names in case your audience are familiar with these towns. Again, in the case of, say, Hanover, from, say, Middlesex into Kingsvale. So they are opening up areas. I think the communities that are stranded, I don't have a list of them, but they are likely to be rural communities in the hills in which land slippage and, maybe flooding and so on have limited access. So I can't think off the top of my head what some of those communities are. But they would definitely be in these affected parishes.
All right, so you mentioned there about makeshift shelters, tarpaulin, and all the other areas. Of course, they are going to work feverishly. What about electricity? Obviously, you said water. Of course, poles were completely knocked out, and electricity. Where are there some areas still without electricity, and where are those areas, and how are they coping?
All right. So, in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane, what we were told by JPSCO is that about 77%, I think, of customers across the country had no electricity. And so they have been slowly but effectively, from what we were told, because apparently before the hurricane, they did major upgrades and preparation. But of course, in their preparation, no doubt, they had no plan for a hurricane, Category 5 hurricane. So, but I think they were definitely much more better ready than the previous hurricane we had last year, Hurricane Beryl. So they have done and are still doing in some areas, I'm sure, the assessment. And what they have said is that some of the areas that did not have electricity is increasing. So up to about yesterday, they restored power to 206,000 customers, of it 150,000 customers. So they're improving.
Yes. Hello, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah. Just lost you a minute there. All right. So in terms of communication, there are some areas without communication. Relatives need to meet their families. Let's speak to that. The Wi-Fi and all the necessary apparatus to have people communicate with their relatives abroad. How has that been working?
Well, one of our communication companies, Show, has been collaborating with Starlink and is giving Jamaicans access. So that has been something that has been rolled out very quickly over the last few days. And so people have at least some temporary type of communication through Starlink. But it is still true. Many persons, there's someone in my office, for example, who's going to go out tomorrow to find her mother because she hasn't heard from her mother since the hurricane. And so we're hoping that she will be able to find her. A team of us will go with her. And, we're hoping, and her mother is in Westmoreland. And we're going into that community tomorrow.
In terms of the airport and the seaport, particularly with the airport, we saw that people were able to leave Jamaica, given that the airport is fully reopened. Just give us an update as to where the airport is in terms of taking people out of Jamaica presently.
Okay, so both airports were impacted, but we were able to get the Norman Manley Airport, that's the airport in Kingston, and St. Andrew up running within a few days. The Montego Bay Airport took a little longer. I think over the last 2 days it is back up. But I had a friend who was scheduled to come into Montego Bay 2 or 3 years ago, and they diverted the plane to Kingston. So I suspect that although Montego Bay might be up and running, because Montego Bay is in St. James, one of the worst impacted parishes, that there is a lot of demand for flights going in, reliefs and so on, and they're just overwhelmed. So I guess they're diverting flights for that reason. So, but it is up and running now. It has returned.
All right. So schools, the schools, well, just the seaport, because there are ships that are coming from varying parts of the Caribbean. We would have sent 3 containers. I don't know if it's arrival. Just walk us through the varying Caribbean territories that are willing and have made their contribution in terms of containers and so on. How has that been working as far as delivery to the people who need it the most? Because what happens in some cases, all of what the efforts may be in one area, and the people who really need it don't get it. In terms of getting what is sent to Jamaica, let's say, for example, the 3 containers from Trinidad, are they evenly distributed? And how operational is your network in terms of getting even distribution to the people in the varying territories, the varying areas of Jamaica?
That's an excellent question, because many of us are very concerned about that. I give you 2 answers. From a governmental point of view, there's been a lot of criticism about where the aid is going. Now, as you can imagine, it too has been overwhelming for the government. from my perspective, an important reason for that is that our government is too centralized. So we have no effective decentralized structure that is resourced to meet needs of the people who need it most. So if you think about us and, even the members of parliament, some of them don't even live in their constituency. They are not as close to the people as the councillors, many of them who live and work in these communities, as well as community leaders. So they lack the local knowledge of the specific areas. And even and when they try to get help, everyone is going to the central government, including MPs. In fact, the leader of the opposition and his MPs had a press conference a few days ago, and they're appealing to the government to include them in the oversight and management of this entire thing. So it sounds like, based on what the opposition said, that the people who are managing and enabling the resources to meet the needs of the people are the ruling parties, members of parliament, and effective the cabinet ministers. Because we know that our countries are being run across the Caribbean by cabinet, and cabinet dominates our legislature. So for me, that's the biggest problem. People see other problems, but that's what I see. Some people call it partisan politics and so on, and it may well be that. But even if the opposition was in, they'll have the same problems. What is that effective mechanism? So what we need to do is empower the councillors, the municipalities, the mayors. They're the ones closest to the people. That kind of relationship needs to be developed, and they feed information up to the MPs and central government. Now that system is not in place. So I think that for me is part of the problem that is evolving now. And so we don't know how effective the goods that are coming into the country are getting to the people that need it most. Having said that, there are organizations like myself. I am CEO of the Lasco Chin Foundation, and there are other foundations and there are other NGOs who, after the hurricane, the day after, have gone into these communities and have been providing relief for those communities. And so to date, we have sent over 3,000 packages into communities with our partners who are connected to those communities because they work in those communities. And so that's the work we are doing. And more importantly, I shouldn't say more importantly, but as importantly, the Jamaican diaspora is very, very connected to those communities. They come from those communities. And so they are finding part on the ground. Some of them are flying in. I have a couple of friends coming out of New York and Miami, and they're flying in and they're physically going down to their families and friends and communities that they belong to.
All right.
So we are getting things into those affected communities.
Very good. Right. So we saw Shaggy flew down. Well, he came down with his own private jet, loaded with stuff, and so we wanted to big up to Shaggy and the rest of the celebrities. We saw Buju Banton also is setting up his team to have. So let's speak to those people who are on the dash outside of Jamaica who wants to contribute, and as you said, some would fly, but there are those who would want to send their contribution to their communities. That has been working well as well. As you said, some are coming in, but there are those out there who would want to send their stuff into Jamaica, may not have a private jet, but would want to get their stuff there. How has that been working in terms of shipping the necessaries to these people?
I have said to many of them that the logistic and cost and time associated with sending stuff, it's more effective to partner with people on the ground that can procure it here in Jamaica. Because it's still possible to get a lot of things here. I mean, food is still possible here. I represent a corporate company that produces, manufactures, and distributes food. So we are able to get things out very, very quickly. So I think a lot of the food items, it's best that we do it here. And again, the type of food is also being discussed, because food that perhaps the Americans eat that typically Jamaicans don't eat, it's very difficult. Jamaicans want the food.
Right.
You know, obviously in desperation, anything matters, but you can procure food locally, and a lot of the items like tarpaulin and so on. We'll perhaps run out, but until then, this is easier, and then we can worry about shipping.
Right. I must ask lastly before we go, the schools. Mona campus is reopened based on a report I saw, but there are other schools that may not be affected by the Hurricane Melissa. In terms of schools that are possibly still up, are they reopened? Tell us about that area, or that area of concern for the young people to get back to school.
There are at least three concerns there. The physical damage that makes some of the schools impossible to open right away. If you have a structure in which students can come, then you have the other problem of whether the students can come, because if they're from those affected communities, they can't come. They're devastating. Mm-hmm. Secondly, teachers are also devastated. So even if a school is physically able to restart, then there are questions about the students as well as the teachers. Now, the Ministry of Education, of course, is managing this, and I think, as I understand, that for those who can, they should, and over time, those who can't attend, they'll no doubt put something in place to help them to catch up. But it is a very difficult situation for schools, of course, who are completely devastated.
Mm-hmm. All right, Professor Rosalea Hamilton, it's indeed a pleasure speaking with you. And in closing, what would you want to say to your Caribbean brothers and sisters? Of course, there's stuff that you would still need to have, and so on. So just make your final appeal.
Yes, I first want to thank Trinidad and Tobago for sending stuff. That's important, even psychologically, that we know that we have brothers and sisters in the Caribbean who understand the climate challenge and are willing to respond. So that's the first thing I want to say. And I want to just continue to the appeal to get in touch with Jamaicans that you know, find channels that can get stuff to them directly if you're concerned about the effectiveness of getting things to people. There are organizations like mine, the Mlascochin Foundation, other corporate foundations, other NGOs that are on the ground. It's not hard to find them. We have a whole network that we work with, and we can get things effectively out to individuals. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's a government hotline. It's all over. You can just search online in any of the government offices of the Prime Minister's website, and you'll see a link there. And so you can, in fact, provide support through the government channels.
All right. Very good. We want to thank you for being with us this morning. All the best to you. Our hearts and prayers continue to be with the people of Jamaica, and much love. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very much. Appreciate it. All the very best.
All right. Good.